The homeless girl and her journey to inherit a billionaire's wealth, fighting his children to protect herself. It was getting dark in the busy streets of Lagos, Nigeria's biggest city. Under the old Falomo Bridge, where people and cars rushed past, the night felt heavy and dark. Amina, a 14-year-old girl with messy black hair tied with an old rubber band and bright, clear eyes, sat shivering next to a small fire she made with dry sticks she picked up during the day. Her thin hands shook as she rubbed them together to stay warm. She wore a torn t-shirt she found in a rubbish heap near Oshodi Market, but it couldn't protect her from the cool breeze of the early dry season. In her hand was a small piece of akara, the fried bean cake she got from a kind roadside seller a few hours ago. She took a tiny bite, chewing slowly, as if to stretch the little warmth it gave her. Amina didn't choose this life on the streets of Lagos. For years ago, a terrible flood in the Makoko slum washed away her small hut and her only family, her mother. With no one to turn to, she had to learn how to survive in the fast, noisy city. But even in her hard life, Amina never lost her kind heart. She often shared her little food with other homeless kids around Jibowa bus station or helped strangers she met on the road. To Amina, kindness was the one thing she could give without losing anything. That night, as her fire crackled softly, she heard heavy footsteps coming closer. She looked up, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness. A tall figure, slightly bent, appeared under the dim light of a solar street lamp. One the government put up, but was already half broken. It was an old man with white hair blowing in the wind, a wrinkled face, and deep, tired eyes that carried a world of weariness. He wore an old agbada, the Yoruba traditional dress, faded but still showing a hint of its former richness. He held a mahogany walking stick, but it didn't seem strong enough to hold up his shaky body. Amina frowned, sensing something was wrong. The old man walked slowly, each step looking like a fight against himself. Suddenly, he stopped, clutching his chest, breathing fast and hard. His stick fell to the ground with a sharp clack on the concrete. Without thinking, Amina jumped up, dropping her akara into the dirt. She ran to him, catching him just as he fell. "Baba, are you okay?" she asked, her voice shaky but calm, calling him Baba, the Yoruba word for an elder she respected. The old man gasped, his eyes shut tight with pain. I can't breathe," he whispered, his voice so weak it almost faded. Amina looked around quickly, her mind racing for a way to help. She remembered a small clinic a few streets away near Balogun Market that stayed open at night with a generator. Her bare feet ached from the hot roads she walked all day, but she didn't care. "Baba, hold on to me. I'll take you where they can help," she said firmly. With strength she didn't know she had, Amina lifted the old man, putting his arm over her shoulder. He was heavier than she thought, but she gritted her teeth and moved, step by step, through the dark, smelly alleys of Lagos filled with trash and sewage. Her bare feet stepped on broken glass and stones, but she ignored the pain. All she could think about was saving him. After nearly 20 minutes of struggling through night hawkers and loud car horns, they reached the clinic. Amina banged on the door, shouting, "Please, somebody. Baba needs help." A young nurse opened it, surprised to see a dirty girl and an old man in a torn agbada. But when she saw his condition, she called the doctor fast. In the small emergency room, they put the old man on a bed, and a heart monitor beeped steadily thanks to the generator. The doctor gave him a shot, and slowly, his breathing got better. Amina stood in a corner, her dirty hands clutching her shirt, watching him closely. She didn't know who he was, but she felt his loneliness, a feeling she knew too well from the streets. When he woke up, he looked around, his cloudy eyes landing on Amina. "Little girl, did you save me?" he asked, his voice rough but surprised. Amina nodded, shyly looking down. "I just did what I had to, Baba. I'm glad you're okay." He gave a weak smile, rare on his tired face. "My name is Chukwemeka Okoye. What's yours?" "Amina," she said softly. "I don't have a family name." Chukwemeka stared at her longer, as if trying to see something deep in her eyes. "Amina," he repeated, like he was carving her name into his mind. "Thank you. I owe you my life." Amina shook her head. "I don't need anything, Baba. Rest well, I have to go." She turned to leave, but he called her back. "Wait," he said, his voice urgent. "I want to see you again. Tomorrow, at the park near Falomo Bridge, 10 in the morning. Will you come?" Amina hesitated. She wasn't used to people noticing her or making promises in this crazy Lagos. But something in his eyes made her nod. I'll try, Baba. When she left the clinic, it was late. She went back to her spot under Falomo Bridge, picked up her cold akara, and sat by the dying fire. She didn't know this meeting would change her life forever. Chukwuemeka Okoye wasn't just anyone. He was a billionaire who once owned Okoye Holdings, a big company in oil and real estate in Nigeria. Now, at 78, he was fighting lung cancer in its last stage. Doctors at a private hospital in Lekki said he had only a few months left, maybe less. He had 5 grown children, 3 boys and 2 girls, but none of them made him proud. They lived big, spending his money on parties and fancy things, not caring about his legacy or the hard work he put into building it. Chukwuemeka lived alone in his huge mansion in Okoye, forgotten by his own family. That night, he couldn't sleep. Lying on a clinic bed, he thought about Amina. This homeless girl had done what his children never did. She sacrificed herself for someone else without asking for anything. He felt a strange bond with her, not pity, but a spark of hope. In her, he saw a pure heart he hadn't found in his rich world for years. After that fateful night under Falomo Bridge, Chukwuemeka started showing up in Amina's life more often. Every Tuesday and Friday morning, he came to her noisy spot under the bridge with a small nylon bag of mwah, steamed bean pudding he bought from a woman near Balagan Market, a bottle of pure water, and sometimes a new pair of rubber slippers. At first, Amina was shocked by his stubborn kindness, but soon she got used to seeing the old man in his faded agbada, leaning on his mahogany stick, crossing the chaotic traffic to find her. She didn't ask much, just said, "Son, Baba, thank you" in Yoruba, and sat with him on the piece of cardboard she called her chair. They talked about small things, the rain coming soon, the sound of birds in the acacia trees nearby, or how Chukwuemeka used to fish in the Niger River when he was young. To Amina, Chukwuemeka was an unexpected friend in tough Lagos. But to him, every visit was a chance to watch her. He noticed how she broke her mwah in half to save some for a homeless boy she called Chitty, or how she picked up a leather wallet, dropped near Oshodi bus stop, and ran to give it back, even with her bleeding bare feet. He saw something in her he'd lost faith in, kindness without expecting anything back. In his world of oil, money, and power, Amina was like a rough diamond, untouched by greed. One Friday night, when a full moon hung over Lagos, its faint light shining on the rusty rooftops, Chukwuemeka came later than usual. Amina sat by her small fire, her eyes half closed from sleep after a long day begging around Yaba Market. His familiar footsteps woke her, mixed with heavy coughs that made her jump. She looked up and saw him coming, paler than usual, his deep eyes hidden under his worn-out cap. He leaned on his stick, but each step looked like a battle against an invisible wind. "Baba Chukwu," Amina called out, but her voice turned worried when she saw him panting. "Baba, you're not well? Why did you come? You should rest at home." Chukwuemeka sat beside her, his shaky hand putting the stick aside. "I'm fine, Amina. Just a little tired. Don't worry." He smiled, but it couldn't hide the weakness in his hoarse voice. Amina didn't believe him. She tilted her head, staring at him with eyes sharpened by years on the streets. "Baba, you cough more than last time. Have you seen a doctor?" He stayed quiet, looking up at the moon like it held answers. Finally, he sighed, his voice low. "Amina, I have something to tell you. But you must promise not to be afraid, okay?" She nodded, though a bad feeling grew inside her. "I promise, Baba." He took a deep breath, then said slowly, "I'm sick, Amina. Lung cancer. The doctors in Lekki say I don't have much time. Maybe a few months, or less." He paused, watching her. Amina's eyes widened, her small hands gripping her torn shirt. She knew death well. She'd seen it on Lagos streets, friends lost to malaria or hunger. But the thought of losing Chukwuemeka, her only friend lately, made her heart tighten. "But you look fine," she mumbled, trying to push the truth away. He chuckled, but it was a sad sound. "I look fine because I want to, Amina. Inside, my body is giving up. I'm not telling you to make you sad. I'm telling you because I want you to know the truth, and because I have something big to ask." Amina blinked, confused. "Ask what, Baba?" He looked straight at her, his eyes serious but soft. "I have plenty money, Amina. More than I can spend in my life. I built Okoye Holdings, a big company in oil and houses. But now, I'm just an old man about to die, and I don't want my wealth to go to people who don't deserve it." Amina tilted her head, still lost. "What do you mean, Baba?" "I have 5 children," he went on, his voice heavy. "They're grown, but none of them care about me or what I leave behind. They just spend my money, party in fancy hotels on Victoria Island, acting like it'll never run out. I don't want my wealth wasted like that. Then I met you." Amina was so shocked, she almost dropped the stick in her hand. "Me? But I have nothing. I don't even have a home." "You have something they'll never have," Chukwamika said firmly. "You have kindness, Amina. You saved me not for money or fame, but because you thought it was right. I want to leave everything to you, my money, my company, all of it, so you can do something good with it." Amina sat still, her mind spinning. She'd never thought about money, let alone owning anything beyond the moi in her hand. "But I don't know anything about money or companies. I'm just a street girl. I'll teach you," he said, taking her hand. "I still have some time, not much, but enough. I'll help you learn, so when I'm gone, you can stand strong. You don't have to say yes now. Think about it, okay?" Amina nodded, but inside, her thoughts were a mess. A new life, leaving the streets of Lagos, sounded exciting but scary. She looked at Chukwamika, saw the truth in his eyes, and for the first time, felt a tiny spark of hope. Time flew like the dry season wind in Lagos. Meetings under Falomo Bridge turned into long days at Chukwamika's big mansion in Okoye. He convinced Amina to live with him for a while, to get used to this new life. The huge house with white walls, red tiles, and bright Ankara curtains amazed her. She often got lost in its wide halls, but Chukwamika patiently showed her around, pointing out every corner of the home he called the soul of our family. He taught her more than she expected, not just reading and writing English, which she only knew a little from street days in Oshodi, but also how he built Okoye Holdings from a small oil business in Port Harcourt into a giant in oil and real estate. He told her about his failures, sleepless nights at his old desk, and the joy of seeing his work turn into tall buildings in Lagos. Amina listened, her eyes shining with curiosity, even if she didn't always understand the big Naira numbers or business plans he talked about. What she did understand was his trust in her, a girl with nothing but rubber slippers and a warm heart. But Chukwamika's health got worse. His coughs grew longer, echoing in the quiet mansion, and he often stopped mid-story to catch his breath. Amina worried, but when she asked, he'd smile and say, "I'm fine, Amina. Don't be scared." She didn't believe him, but she knew he didn't want her sad. So she tried to cheer him up, bringing wildflowers from the garden or telling him about her old street friends like Chitty from Jibbawil. One dry season afternoon, when Lagos air burned hot and red dust blew everywhere, Chukwamika called Amina to his study. She walked in, seeing him on a cushioned mahogany chair, an Ankara cloth over his lap, his face pale, but his eyes still sharp. Next to him was a man in a black suit holding a briefcase, his lawyer, Billionaire'S. "Amina, sit here," Chukwamika said, his voice rough but strong. She sat on a wooden chair across from him, her hands fidgeting on her new Ankara skirt he'd bought her. He took a deep breath, then turned to Obina. "Is everything ready?" Obina nodded, opening his briefcase and pulling out thick papers. "Yes, Mr. Okoye. The will is updated as you wanted, and I've arranged to announce it to the family." Amina tilted her head, confused. "What's a will, Baba?" He smiled, resting his hand on hers. "It's a promise, Amina. A promise that when I go, everything I have goes to the person I choose. And I've chosen you." Her eyes widened, her heart pounding. "But I told you, I don't know about money or companies. I just want you to get better." "I know," he said gently. "But I won't get better, Amina. I want you to have a better life, not just for you, but so you can help others, like you helped me. I believe you can do it." Before she could argue, Obina spoke. "Mr. Okoye has decided to leave everything. Okoye Holdings, properties in Lagos and Abuja, and bank accounts, to Amina. I'll oversee the handover to make sure it's legal under Nigerian law." Amina sat frozen, her mind blank. She couldn't imagine herself, a girl who slept under Falomo Bridge, owning all this. But before she could speak, Chukwamika coughed hard, clutching his chest. She rushed to him, shouting, "Baba, what's wrong?" Obina jumped up, calling the maid for water and medicine from the cabinet. After tense minutes, Chukwuemeka calmed down, but he looked weaker than ever. He held Amina's hand, whispering, "I don't want to do this in secret, Amina. Tomorrow, I'll call my children here. I want them to hear from me that you're my heir." The next morning, the Okoye mansion buzzed with noise. Chukwuemeka's 5 children, Adebayo, Ngozi, Chinedu, Fatima, and Tund, arrived, each with a grumpy or curious look. They rarely visited their father unless it was about money or power. Adebayo, the oldest, strutted in with an expensive suit from London, his eyes proud. Ngozi, the second daughter, typed on her new iPhone, her high heels clicking on the tiles. Chinedu and Fatima whispered and giggled like they were at a Victoria Island party. Tund, the youngest, was quiet, but his cold eyes calculated everything. Chukwuemeka lay on a bed in the big living room, a breathing machine beeping beside him thanks to the house generator. Amina stood behind him, in her simple Ankara dress, her hands shaking. Obinna stood nearby, holding the will. "My children," Chukwuemeka began, his voice weak but clear. "I called you here because I don't have much time. I want to talk about my wealth after I'm gone." Adebayo smirked, cutting in, "Baba, if it's about sharing the money, leave it to the lawyer. We'll handle it." "No," Chukwuemeka said, his voice firmer. "I've made my choice, and you need to hear it. All my wealth, Okoye Holdings, houses, money, goes to Amina, the girl behind me." The room went dead silent. Then Adebayo burst out laughing, like it was a joke. "Baba, are you serious? A dirty street girl? What kind of play is this?" Ngozi stopped typing, staring at Amina. "What's wrong with Baba? Who's this girl?" Chukwuemeka raised a hand, silencing them. "Amina saved my life, and more than that, she has a heart you'll never have. You only spend my money, never thinking to build or help anyone. I chose her because she deserves it." Chinedu stepped forward, growling, "Baba, you can't do this. We're your real children, not her." "Exactly," Fatima added, her eyes sharp. "We won't let this happen. You can't take our rights for a beggar." Amina shrank back, feeling their stares like knives. But Chukwuemeka held her hand, whispering, "Don't be afraid, Amina. I'm here." Obinna spoke up. "The will is signed and notarized under Nigerian law. This is Mr. Okoye's legal wish. You can fight it in court, but it's done." Adebayo gritted his teeth, pointing at Amina. "You think you can steal my money, girl? I'll make you regret stepping in here." Chukwuemeka coughed hard but forced out, "My children, if you respect me at all, let me go in peace. This is my final choice." The argument lasted hours, but he didn't budge. Finally, the 5 stormed out, leaving Amina and Chukwuemeka in the quiet room. She turned to him, eyes red. "I don't want Baba fighting them because of me." He smiled, stroking her hair. "I did this because I believe in you, Amina. Be strong. After I'm gone, it won't be easy." That night, Chukwuemeka died in his sleep, leaving Amina with pain and a huge duty. His funeral was held days later at a church in Okoye, but his 5 children didn't show up. They were already planning to fight the will, determined to take everything from her. Standing by his grave, Amina whispered, "I won't let you down, Baba." But she didn't know the real fight was just starting. The day Chukwuemeka Okoye died, gray clouds covered Lagos, like even the sky mourned with Amina. His funeral was at St. Saviour's Church in Okoye, with hymns echoing off the old stone walls. Amina stood quietly by his mahogany coffin, her eyes red but dry. She wore the simple green Ankara dress he'd bought her new rubber slippers stiff on her feet. Around her were strangers, old friends and business partners of Chukwuemeka, but none of his 5 children came. It made her feel both relieved and uneasy. After the ceremony, Obinna took Amina back to the Okoye mansion. He sat her down in the big living room, put his briefcase on the table, and looked at her seriously. "Amina," he said, his voice steady, "things will change now. Mr. Okoye left everything to you, Okoye Holdings, this house, and billions of naira in the bank. But it also means you'll face big challenges." Amina nodded, though she didn't fully grasp what was happening. "I just want to do what Baba wanted," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But I don't know where to start." Obinna smiled a little, trying to comfort her. "I'll help you. I'm in charge of the will, and I'll stay with you until you're old enough to handle it all. But first, we have to deal with his family. They won't let this go easily." His warning came true fast. 2 days after the funeral, while Amina sat in the mansion's backyard staring at the mango trees Chukwuemeka loved, a shiny black Land Rover screeched through the gate. Adebayo, the oldest son, stormed out, his face dark with anger, followed by Ngozi and Chinedu. They wore expensive clothes, Adebayo in a gray suit, Ngozi in a tight Dubai dress, Chinedu in a shiny silk shirt, like they wanted to show how different they were from the shy girl in front of them. Amina stood up, her heart racing as they came closer. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice small but steady. Adebayo sneered, stepping so close she could smell his costly perfume. "Who do you think you are, standing in my house, you street rat? Baba might have gone mad writing that will, but I won't let you steal my family's money." Ngozi crossed her arms, eyeing Amina up and down with disgust. "Look at her, Chinedu. A dirty girl from under Falomo Bridge dreaming of owning Okoye Holdings? I can't believe it." Chinedu bent down to her level, his voice icy. "Listen, girl. You've got two choices. Leave now and forget this will, or I'll make your life hell." "Which one?" Amina stepped back, but didn't look away. She remembered Chukwuemeka's words. "Be strong, Amina." She took a deep breath and said, "This is Baba's house, and he gave it to me. I'm not going anywhere." Adebayo clenched his fist, raising his hand like he'd slap her, but a loud shout came from the gate. "Stop." Obinna ran up, holding his phone like he'd just called someone. "You can't touch her. The will is legal, and I'm her guardian. Try anything, and I'll call the police." Adebayo turned to Obinna, his eyes blazing. "Who do you think you are? Threatening me. I'm Chukwuemeka Okoye's first son. This money is mine, not hers. Who it belongs to isn't up to you," Obinna said coldly. "Take it to court if you want. Now leave, or I'll call security." The three glared at Amina one last time before storming off, but their eyes promised this wasn't over. When the Land Rover disappeared, Obinna turned to Amina, sighing. "You okay?" She nodded, though her hands still shook. "They hate me, Uncle Obinna. I don't know why they can't leave me alone." "They don't hate you," he explained. "They hate losing what they think is theirs. But don't be afraid, I'll protect you. From now, you need to be extra careful." The days after showed how right Obinna was. One morning, while Amina picked fallen mangoes in the yard, she found the mansion gate's lock broken and some trees chopped down. Obinna called a repairman, but he suspected Adebayo or one of the others did it. "They're trying to scare you," he said, "but we won't let them win." It didn't stop there. A few days later, a handwritten note was slipped under the mansion door. "Leave or die." The writing was messy but strong, full of anger. Amina gave it to Obinna, who called the police right away. But the officer who came just shrugged, saying, "No proof, nothing we can do. Maybe kids playing." Amina knew it wasn't a joke. She stopped sleeping well, jumping at every sound. The wind on the roof, dogs barking outside. She missed her days under Falomo Bridge. They were hungry and cold, but not full of fear like this. One afternoon, while she sat with Obinna in the living room learning about Okoye Holdings papers, the gate bell rang. A man in a black suit, saying he was Adebayo's lawyer, walked in with a sly smile. "I'm here for my client," he said, dropping a file on the table. "We're officially challenging Mr. Okoye's will. We say he wasn't in his right mind, and this girl tricked him." Obinna stood up, his voice hard. "The will was signed with 3 witnesses. Take it to court if you want, but don't threaten Amina." The lawyer smirked. "We're not just going to court, We'll prove she's a fraud. Let's see how long she lasts." He left, leaving Amina with a chill down her spine. That night, she sat alone in the big bedroom Chukwuemeka gave her, looking out at Okoye's twinkling lights. She remembered his words, "I believe you can do it." But now, she wondered if she was strong enough for this storm. Meanwhile, at a fancy club in Victoria Island, Adebayo, Ngozi, Chinedu, Fatima, and Tun partied with friends. Adebayo slammed the table, growling, "That girl thinks she can take Okoye Holdings from us? I won't let it happen." Ngozi nodded, her eyes mean. "We need to scare her off. If we have to, hire someone to deal with her." Fatima laughed softly. "Not yet. First, we win in court. Then, if she stays, we show her Lagos isn't for beggars." Tund, the quiet one, finally spoke. "Don't underestimate her. If Baba chose her, she might not be so simple." Adebayo glared at him. "Whose side are you on?" "I'll prove she's nothing." Amina didn't know their plans, but she felt the cold danger closing in. She held Chukwamika's wooden bead necklace tight, whispering, "Baba, what do I do?" After the tense face-off with Adebayo, Ngozi, and Shinidu at the Okoye mansion, Amina knew the danger was real. The big house didn't feel peaceful anymore, not like when Chukwamika was alive. Every corner, every rustle of the Ankara curtains in the wind, made her jump. She wasn't the carefree girl from Falomo Bridge anymore. Now she carried a duty she wasn't ready for, and the hate from Chukwamika's family was heavy on her shoulders. Obinna did all he could to keep her safe. He hired more guards for the mansion, put cameras at the gate, and told her not to go out alone. "They're angry, Amina," he said one morning over moi and tea in the living room. "But I won't let them hurt you. Just be patient, the court will settle it." Amina nodded, but her heart wasn't calm. She wasn't afraid of hunger or cold, things she'd faced since small, but those evil looks from Adebayo and Ngozi's cold voice scared her. She worried she wasn't strong enough to keep her promise to Chukwamika. "Uncle Obinna," she asked quietly, "if they win in court, what will I do?" He put a hand on her shoulder, his eyes steady. "They won't win. Baba's will is clear and legal, and we have proof he was sane when he signed it. But be careful, they won't only use the law." His warning came true soon. One dark night, when the first rain of the season poured down on Lagos, blurring the streetlights in Okoye, Amina was in her room reading a simple English book Chukwamika gave her. The rain tapped the roof, drowning out other sounds, until a loud bam came from the mansion gate. Amina jumped, running to the window. Under the faint light, she saw two men in black raincoats smashing the iron gate with hammers. The guard lay on the ground, holding his head, blood mixing with the rain. Her heart pounded. She knew this wasn't an accident. They were here for her. She ran downstairs, shouting, "Uncle Obinna, someone's breaking in." But Obinna wasn't there. He'd gone home to Surulere after checking legal papers that afternoon. Panicking, she grabbed a small knife from the kitchen, the only thing she could use to protect herself, and hid behind a big wooden cupboard. Glass shattered in the living room. The two men were inside, their wet footsteps loud on the tiles. "Where's the girl?" One growled in a thick Lagos accent. "Find her quick. Adebayo paid us to finish before morning." Amina held her breath, gripping the knife so hard her knuckles turned white. She heard furniture crashing, chairs, vases, even Chukwamika's portrait on the wall. "If she won't leave, teach her a lesson," the other said, his voice cold and cruel. She knew she couldn't hide forever. Using the speed she learned dodging thugs in Oshodi Market, she crawled quietly from the kitchen, sneaking through the dark hall to the back door. But as she touched the handle, a big hand grabbed her shirt, yanking her back. "Where you going, girl?" he yelled, his breath stinking of beer. Amina fought, stabbing the knife into his hand. He screamed, letting go, and she bolted out into the pouring rain. Her bare feet slipped on the wet ground, but she kept running through Okoye's small alleys, the men's shouts echoing behind her. "Catch her. Don't let her go." She didn't know how long she ran, only stopping when she reached a hidden spot near the old Marina ferry dock. Rain soaked her Ankara dress, but she didn't feel cold. Fear kept her burning. She crouched behind wooden crates, hugging her knees, whispering, "Baba, what do I do?" The next morning, when the rain stopped and the sun rose over Lagos, Amina found her way back to the mansion. Obinna was there, talking to police in front of the wrecked house. The guard was in the hospital, and the place looked like a storm hit. Broken glass, flipped furniture, muddy footprints everywhere. Obinna ran to her, hugging her tight. "You're safe? I called the police when the neighbors told me." She nodded, her voice shaky. "They broke in, Uncle Obinna. They said Adebayo paid them to chase me out." Obinna's jaw tightened, his eyes dark. "I knew it was them. But with no direct proof, the police can't act. You can't stay here alone anymore." He took her to his house in Surulere, a quieter middle-class area. She stayed in his daughter's room. His girl was away at university in Ibadan, and he added more guards. But Amina knew it wasn't over. 2 days later, while helping Obinna's wife cook egusi soup, a small truck crashed into their gate, smashing it down. No one got hurt, but the message was clear: they were still watching. Obinna decided to fight harder. He hired a private detective, Emeka, to find proof linking Adebayo to the attacks. "They think you're easy prey. Emeka said when he met Amina, his smile bold. But I'll make them pay. Meanwhile, at a fancy bar in Lekki, Chukwuemeka's 5 children met again. Adebayo slammed his beer down, growling. That girl escaped last night. I paid those 2 guys, and they messed up. Ngozi smirked, fixing her hair. You moved too fast, Adebayo. I told you to let me handle the court first. If we win there, she's done. Chinedu nodded. But if she keeps fighting, I've got other ways. One call to some boys in Mushin, and it's over. Fatima laughed softly, sipping wine. Don't kill her yet. Scare her till she runs. I want to see her beg. Tund, quiet as usual, spoke low. We're underestimating her. If she survived last night, she's not weak. Adebayo glared at him. Say what you want, but I won't let her win. I'll handle her myself if I have to. At Obina's house, Amina sat on her bed, holding Chukwuemeka's wooden beads tight. She wasn't just a homeless girl worried about food anymore. Now she had to fight for his legacy, not just for herself, but for the promise she made him. Baba, she whispered, I won't give up. But deep down, she knew the dark nights of Lagos weren't over. Her enemies were waiting, and every step was a fight to stay alive. After the attack at the Okoye mansion, Amina didn't feel Lagos was a safe place anymore. Even at Obina's house in Surulere, fear followed her like a shadow under dim streetlights. The noise of cars, hawkers shouting, and rain on tin roofs now sounded like warnings of danger lurking. But inside her, a small fire started burning. She didn't want to run anymore. Obina saw the change in her eyes. One morning, as they sat in his backyard with a pot of fresh egusi soup, he asked, What's on your mind, Amina? You don't look scared like before. She stared at her hands, still rough from street days, now with scratches from her escape. I don't want them to win, Uncle Obina, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Baba Chukwu trusted me, gave me everything. If I keep running, it's like I'm letting him down. Obina nodded, pride in his eyes. You're right. But to fight them, you need more than courage. You need to be smart, and I'll help you. That same day, Emeka, the detective, came with a thin file. He sat on a plastic chair in the living room, grinning confidently. I found something, he said, dropping the papers on the table. Adebayo isn't as careful as he thinks. One of the guys from that night got caught causing trouble in Mushin. He confessed Adebayo paid him 50,000 naira to teach Amina a lesson. Amina's eyes widened, her heart racing. So we have proof now? Emeka shook his head. Not enough for court yet. It's just his word, no contract or recording. But it shows Adebayo's getting reckless. I'll dig deeper, especially on Ngozi and Chinedu. They might be in on it too. Obina rubbed his chin, thinking, if we can prove they're behind the attacks, the court will side with Amina. But we need to move fast before they strike again. Amina held Chukwuemeka's wooden beads, her eyes fierce. I don't just want to wait and hit back. I want them to know I'm not weak like they think. Obina and Emeka exchanged looks, surprised by her shift. What do you mean? Obina asked. I want to meet them, she said. Face to face. I want them to see I'm not afraid. 3 days later, Obina set up a meeting at Okoye Holdings' office in central Lagos. The tall, glassy building in Victoria Island was once Chukwuemeka's pride. Amina walked into the big meeting room, wearing her green Ankara dress from his funeral, her rubber slippers swapped for simple canvas shoes Nkechi bought her. Obina and Emeka were with her, but she asked to speak first. Adebayo, Ngozi, Chinedu, Fatima, and Tund sat around the table, each with a different look. Adebayo angry, Ngozi smug, Chinedu cold, Fatima mocking, Tund watching quietly. When Amina entered, Adebayo slammed the table. What's this girl doing here? This is my family's company, not hers. Amina took a deep breath, stood tall, and looked Adebayo in the eye. This is Baba Chukwu's company, she said, her voice clear despite a slight shake. And he gave it to me. You can hate me, hire people to beat me, but I'm not leaving. Ngozi laughed sharply. Listen to her. Who do you think you are, talking to us? A girl from under Falomo Bridge wants to own Okoye Holdings. I'm not claiming it, Amina said, her eyes steady. Baba chose me, and I'll do what he wanted. Keep this company to help people, not waste it like you. Chinedu leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. Watch yourself, girl. Lagos isn't a place where people like you last long. Amina clenched her fists but didn't back down. I've survived Lagos since I was 4, with no house, no money. If you think some thugs can scare me, you're wrong. Fatima smirked, tossing her dyed blonde hair. Cute. But you don't know who you're messing with. We'll crush you in court, and when you've got nothing, I'll watch you cry. Tund, silent till now, spoke low. Don't talk too soon, Fatima. This girl's got more guts than I thought. Adebayo glared at Tund, then at Amina. You want to play tough? Fine. But don't cry when I take everything from you. Obina stepped up, hand on Amina's shoulder. Enough. This meeting was to show you Amina isn't scared. Take us to court if you want. We're ready. But touch her again, and I'll have proof for the police. The five stormed out, fuming, but Amina felt a tiny shift. They still hated her, but their eyes weren't just full of scorn anymore. There was a hint of caution. On the drive back to Suralere, Emeka laughed in the car. You did great, Amina. Adebayo's face. He was so mad it turned red. Obina nodded. I didn't expect you to speak up like that. But now they'll fight harder. You need to be ready. Amina looked out the window at hawkers dodging traffic. I know, Uncle Obina. But if Baba believed in me, I have to believe in myself. That night, as she slept in Obina's small spare room, Emeka got a call that made him jump up. I've got news, he said, meeting them in the kitchen. An old Okoye Holdings worker contacted me. He said Ngozi tried to bribe him to fake papers saying Baba Chukwu was mad when he signed the will. He refused, but he recorded her. Amina's eyes widened. So we have proof? Emeka nodded. Yes. If we use this in court, Ngozi's in big trouble. But we must be careful. If they know we have it, they'll try to destroy it. Obina patted her shoulder. You were right not to give up. This is our first step to fight back. Meanwhile, at a penthouse in Lekki, the five gathered in anger. Adebayo smashed a glass, growling. That girl dared challenge me in front of everyone. I won't forgive her. Ngozi crossed her arms, voice cold. You made too much noise, Adebayo. Let me handle the court. We'll hire the best lawyer from Abuja to crush her. Chinita nodded. And if the court isn't enough, I've got boys in Ajij ready to make her disappear. Fatima giggled. I want to see her cry first. Let her think she's winning, then take it all. Tund stared out the window, voice low. We're underestimating her. If she's got proof, our plans could crash. Adebayo glared at him. Keep worrying. I'll show that girl who rules Lagos. At Suralere, Amina sat by the window, watching the faint moonlight over Lagos. She held Chukwuemeka's beads, whispering, Baba, I'm doing it, right? The spark in her chest grew bigger, and she knew the road ahead was long, but she wouldn't let it die. The first court day came on a hot morning in Lagos, the sun blazing through dusty red clouds. The high court near Marina was an old building with peeling white walls and creaky ceiling fans. Amina walked in, her palms sweaty but trying to stay calm. She wore her green Ankara dress, Chukwuemeka's gift, and the canvas shoes from Kechi. Obina and Emeka walked beside her, carrying thick files, ready for the legal fight. The courtroom was packed. Adebayo, Ngozi, Chinidu, Fatima, and Tund sat on one side, joined by their lawyers, a group in sharp black suits from Abuja, led by Femi Adeyemi, nicknamed Wool Hunter. There were also curious onlookers, old Okoye Holdings staff, family friends, and reporters from Punch and Vanguard, eager to cover the street girl versus the billionaire family. Amina sat at the plaintiff's table, feeling eyes piercing her back. Across the room, Adebayo whispered to his lawyer, glaring at her. Ngozi sat tall, brushing her curly hair with fake confidence. Chinidu and Fatima giggled like it was a game. Tund watched her quietly, his look hard to read. Judge Aisha Muhammad entered, her black robe flowing as she sat. She banged her gavel, her voice booming. Court is in session. We're here to check if Mr. Chukwuemeka Okoye's last will is legal, challenged by his children. Plaintiff, speak. Obina stood, fixing his tie, voice calm but strong. Your Honor, I'm Obina, representing Amina, chosen by Mr. Okoye to inherit everything, including Okoye Holdings. The will was signed October 15th, with 3 independent witnesses and notarized in Lagos. We have papers and a video of him signing, proving he was fully sane. He showed a small screen with a video Chukwuemeka had recorded. In it, he sat in his study chair, voice weak but clear. I, Chukwuemeka Okoye, in my right mind, leave all my wealth to Amina, the girl who saved my life and has a heart I trust. This is my final wish. The room buzzed. Some nodded, but Adebayo clenched his jaw, whispering to Femi. Their lawyer stood, smirking slyly. Your Honor, Femi said smoothly, we don't deny the will was signed. But we say Mr. Okoye was tricked by this girl, a street kid with no blood tie, showing up just in time to take advantage of a dying man. We have proof his mind was weak from cancer and drugs. Femi handed over medical reports from Lekki Hospital and a doctor's statement saying Chukwuemeka might have lost judgment in his last months. Adebayo grinned at Amina like he'd won. Obinna fired back fast. Your Honor, those reports aren't complete. We have statements from 3 witnesses, a secretary, a maid, and me, saying Mr. Okoye was sharp and firm when he signed. Plus, we've got proof the other side tried to fake papers to ruin his name. He signaled Emeka, who stood and played a recording. Ngozi's voice came through, cold and clear. If you fake papers saying Baba was mad, I'll pay you 200,000 naira. No one will know. The room buzzed louder, reporters scribbling fast. Ngozi jumped up, face red. That's fake. I never said that. Judge Muhammad banged her gavel. Quiet. I'll review this recording. Plaintiff, prove where it came from. Emeka grinned, showing his phone and a certificate from an independent sound expert, confirming it was real, from an old Okoye Holdings worker. We've got the witness ready to testify if needed, he added. Femi frowned, but bounced back. Even if it's real, it doesn't change that this girl isn't fit to inherit. A street kid, no school, no skills. How can she run Okoye Holdings? It's an insult to the Okoye family. Amina, quiet till now, stood up. Obinna tried to stop her, but she shook her head and faced the judge. Ma, she said, voice shaky but steady. I don't know much about companies or money. But Baba Chukwu taught me it's not what I have, it's what I do with it. He wanted me to use this to help others, like me, with no home, no one. I'm not stealing from anybody. I just want to keep my promise to him. The room went silent. Judge Muhammad looked at her, her eyes softening a bit. Girl, thank you. But the law isn't about feelings. I'll check all the evidence before deciding. The court went on for hours, arguments flying back and forth. Adebayo and Ngozi kept whispering to their lawyer, glaring at Amina when she spoke. Chinedu and Fatima smirked, while Tun watched, unreadable. Finally, Judge Muhammad banged her gavel. I need time to look at the evidence. The recording, medical reports, everything. Court is paused till next week. Be ready with more papers if you have them. As people left, Adebayo walked up to Amina, voice low and threatening. You think you've won with your sweet talk? I'll make you regret coming here. She looked him in the eye, calm. Do what you want, but Baba trusted me, and I won't let him down. Obinna pulled her away before Adebayo could reply, but his glare followed them. On the ride back to Surulere, Emeka laughed in the car. You did great, Amina. That recording shook Ngozi. She's sweating now, I bet. Obinna nodded. We've got them on the back foot. But no ruling yet, and they'll play dirty. You need to watch out more than ever. Amina stared out at hawkers in the dusty streets. I trust you and Emeka, Uncle Obinna. But if they fight dirty, I won't sit still either. At the Lekki penthouse, the 5 gathered, furious. Adebayo slammed the table, growling. That girl brought a recording to court. Ngozi, what kind of mess is this? Ngozi gritted her teeth. I didn't know that worker recorded me. I'll deal with him later. Chinedu crossed his arms. Court's too slow. I said it. Hire boys from Ajij to finish it. Fatima giggled. Not yet, Chinedu. If she dies now, we're the first suspects. I've got another plan. Tun spoke low. We're losing grip. If the ruling goes her way, we're done. Adebayo glared at him. Keep worrying. I'll make sure she doesn't come out on top. At Surulere, Amina sat in her room, holding Chukwuemeka's beads. The courtroom lights that day gave her hope, but she knew the fight wasn't over. Baba, she whispered, I'm doing it, right? The first court day put Chukwuemeka's 5 children on the defensive, but instead of backing off, they got more determined to push Amina out. At their fancy Lekki penthouse, neon lights from tall buildings glowed through the glass, lighting up Adebayo's angry face. He paced the living room, whiskey in hand, growling. That girl thinks she can beat me with her sob story and a stupid recording? I'll show her Lagos isn't a playground. Ngozi sat on a leather couch, brushing her curls with fake calm. You're too loud, Adebayo. That recording was my mistake, okay? But I've handled that worker. He won't talk again. We need a new plan. Chinedu smirked, leaning against the wall. I said it from the start. Court's too slow. Hire some Ajij boys to deal with her quick. Car accident. House fire. No one will suspect. Fatima laughed softly, sipping red wine. Don't be so rough, Chinedu. If she dies now, police will point at us right after court. I've got a smarter way. Ruin her name so no one trusts her. Tund, quiet for a while, spoke up. Fatima's right. Killing her is too risky. But if we make her look like a liar who tricked Baba Chukwu into writing that will, people will believe it. We just need fake witnesses and some cash. Adebayo turned, eyes lighting up. What's your plan, Tund? Tund smiled faintly. She's been on the streets her whole life. No school, no skills. If we say she staged saving Baba to fool him, it'll stick. A few paid witnesses, and it's done. Ngozi nodded, a wicked grin spreading. I like it. I'll handle the news. Pay some Lagos papers to spread rumors. Adebayo, you find the witnesses. Adebayo banged the table, laughing loud. Good. I'll make sure that girl can't lift her head up. Meanwhile, at Obina's house in Surulere, Amina tried to settle into her new life amid the threats. After court, she felt stronger, but she knew the five wouldn't stop. One afternoon, while peeling yam with Nkechi in the yard, Emeka rushed in, tense. Amina, Obina, trouble, he said, holding up a newspaper he bought from a hawker. The Guardian Nigeria's front page screamed, "Street girl tricks billionaire Chukwemeka Okoye." The story quoted a nameless witness, saying Amina planned the rescue to win him over, then conned him into the will. It had a blurry photo of her under Falomo Bridge, captioned, "Fraud or heir?" Amina's hands shook, dropping the paper. I didn't do that. I didn't trick Baba Chukwu. Obina picked it up, his voice low. This is their move, Amina. They're trying to dirty your name before the next court day, so the judge doubts you. Emeka nodded. I checked around. This rumor started with a journalist in Victoria Island who works for rich families. Ngozi's behind it, for sure. Nkechi put a hand on Amina's shoulder, soft. Don't be afraid, child. We know the truth, and it'll win. But Amina couldn't stop worrying. That night, as she stepped into the yard for fresh air, a group of strangers stood near Obina's gate, shouting, "Thief! Give back Okoye's money." They threw stones and water bottles into the yard, forcing her back inside. Obina called the police, but the crowd was gone when they arrived. Next morning, it got worse. A man claiming to be a witness appeared on Channels TV's morning news, saying he saw Amina stage the rescue near Falomo Bridge. I was there, he said, his voice shaky like bad acting. That girl pushed the old man down to pretend to save him. She fooled us all. Amina watched with Obina and Emeka, tears rolling down her cheeks. Why are they doing this, Uncle Obina? I just wanted to help Baba. Obina hugged her. They're scared of you, Amina. They know if they don't act, you'll win in court. But we won't let them succeed. Emeka stood, firm. I'll find that witness. If he took money from Adebayo, I'll get the proof. While Emeka dug around, the five moved to their next step. One night, as Amina slept, a crash woke her, glass breaking at her window. A brick lay on the floor, a note tied to it. Leave Lagos or die. Her heart raced, but she didn't scream. She'd learned to stay cool from dodging Oshodi thugs. She ran to Obina, who checked the house, but the thrower was gone. They're trying to scare you, he said, voice heavy. We'll add more guards. No going out alone. Next morning, Emeka came with news. I found the TV witness, he said, slapping a photo on the table. A skinny man with scars. Name's Jide, a gambler from Mushin. I followed him to a bar, saw him take money from Chinedu. Got pictures and video. Amina clenched her fists, eyes bright. So we can prove they're lying? Emeka nodded. Yes, I'll give this to the police in court. But they won't stop. We need to be ready for their next hit. Just as Emeka predicted, the five kept going. At the Lekki penthouse, Adebayo called an urgent meeting. That girl's tougher than I thought, he growled. Rumors didn't work, the witness got caught. Now what? Fatima set her wine down, smiling. I told you. Ruin her completely. I know a guy in Yaba who fakes papers. We'll make a contract saying Baba Chukwu hired her as a maid, not a savior. Then leak it to the press. Ngozi nodded. Good. I'll pay bigger papers, Vanguard, Punch, to push it. Chinedu crossed his arms. If that's not enough, I'll have her kidnapped. Take her out of Lagos. Dump her in a Port Harcourt slum. No one will find her. Tun frowned. You're too reckless. If the police trace it, we're finished. Let me handle it. I'll make her quit without blood. Adebayo glared at him. Do what you want, but I want her gone before the next court day. At Surulere, Amina sat in the yard with Obinna and Emeka, planning their fight back. We'll use Jide's video in court, Obinna said. But we need a solid witness, someone who saw you save Baba Chukwu. Amina thought, then her eyes lit up. I remember. There's an Accra seller near Falomo Bridge, Mama Tolu. She saw me help Baba that night. Emeka laughed. Great job, Amina. I'll find her now. As Emeka left, Amina looked up at Lagos night sky, holding Chukwemeka's beads. She felt the traps tightening, but she wasn't as scared anymore. Baba, she whispered, I won't let them win. The second court day came a week later, with Lagos still hot and dusty from the dry season. The High Court in Marina was packed again, even more than before. Word of the street girl fighting the Okoye family had spread from Yaba's mama put stalls to Victoria Island's fancy offices. Reporters from Punch, Vanguard, and an international TV channel crowded outside, cameras flashing as Amina walked in. She wore her green Ankara dress, now clean and ironed by Nkechi, her canvas shoes snug from adjustments. Obinna and Emeka flanked her, Obinna with a thicker file, Emeka grinning boldly. Amina took a deep breath, stepping into the courtroom with a racing heart, but no more trembling. The five sat opposite, Adebayo fuming, Ngozi brushing her hair to hide nerves, Chinedu and Fatima whispering, Tund watching silently. Their lawyer, Femi Adeyemi, stood as Judge Muhammad banged her gavel. Your Honor, Femi said, smooth but sharp, since last time, we've got new proof Amina tricked Mr. Okoye. Here's a contract showing he hired her as a maid, not a savior like she claims. Plus, 3 witnesses say he wasn't sane in his last months. He handed over a fake contract and statements from a driver, a hawker, and a nurse who claimed to know Chukwemeka. The crowd murmured, reporters scribbling. Adebayo smirked at Amina like he'd won. Obinna stood, voice steady and strong. Your Honor, the defendants keep using dirty tricks to smear Amina. That contract's fake. We have a handwriting expert to prove it. Their witnesses? We checked. They took money from Adebayo to lie. He nodded to Emeka, who showed a screen. This is video from Mushin, Emeka said, playing it. Jide, the TV witness, took a cash envelope from Chinedu, saying, I'll say what you want. That girl tricked the old man for money. The room buzzed, some shaking their heads. Femi frowned but fought back. That video doesn't prove anything. Anyone can stage it. We want our witnesses heard first. Judge Muhammad nodded. Fine. First witness. The old driver stepped up, shaky. I drove for Mr. Okoye years. He was weak, couldn't remember my name in the end. That girl came, and he changed. She must have done something. Obinna fired back. You say he forgot your name. When did you stop working for him? The driver stammered. Last year. Wrong. Obinna said, showing papers. You were sacked 2 years ago for stealing fuel. You didn't see him since. How'd you know he was weak? The driver stuttered, caught. The crowd laughed, and the judge banged for quiet. The hawker and nurse fell apart too. The hawker admitted never meeting Chukwemeka. The nurse couldn't name her hospital. Amina looked at Obinna gratefully, but knew she had to speak. When the judge asked if she had anything, she stood, voice small but firm. Ma, I don't know much about law or companies, but Baba Chukwu saved me from the streets, and he trusted me to do good with what he left. I didn't trick him. I'd never do that. She paused, then said, I have someone who'll tell the truth. She signaled, and Mama Tolu, the Accra seller from Falomo Bridge, walked in, her yellow buba dress bright, her wrinkled face strong. Mama Tolu stood at the stand, voice loud. I'm Tolu Adewale, selling Accra near Falomo Bridge for over 20 years. That night, I saw Amina hold up the old man, Mr. Okoye, when he fell. She ran everywhere to save him, rain or no rain. I didn't know who he was then, but I saw her good heart clear. The room went quiet, then buzzed. Judge Muhammad nodded. Thank you, Ma. Any questions? Femi stood, mocking. You say you saw clear, but it was dark and rainy. How you sure it was Mr. Okoye? Mama Tolu smirked. I've sold Accra under that bridge my whole life. My eyes are sharp. I even remember Amina gave me 50 naira she begged the next day to thank me for showing her the clinic. You think I'm lying? Femi sat, annoyed. Adebayo whispered to Ngozi. That old woman ruined it. Obinna seized the chance, adding, we've got a receipt from the clinic, proving Amina brought Mr. Okoye there at midnight, matching Mama Tolu's story. Plus, the handwriting expert says their contract was faked after he died. Judge Muhammad banged her gavel, stern. I've heard enough. I'll review all evidence, video, witnesses, papers, before my final ruling next week. Courts paused. As people left, Adebayo walked up to Amina, voice low. You think you've won? I won't let you rest. She met his eyes, calm. Do what you like, but the truth stays. Baba chose me. Obinna pulled her away, but Adebayo's glare lingered like a hunter's. On the ride to Suralere, Emeka laughed. You nailed it, Amina. Mama Tolu was the star. Femi's face went pale. Obinna nodded. We've got them weak. But no ruling yet, and they'll fight dirtier. Be extra careful. Amina watched hawkers outside. I know, Uncle Obinna. But today, I felt Baba smiling at me. At the Lekki penthouse, the five raged. Adebayo smashed a glass, growling. That Akara woman testified. How we miss her. Ngozi gritted her teeth. I didn't think she'd find anyone. I won't lose. I'll get another lawyer. Chinedu crossed his arms. Forget court. I'll have her dealt with before the ruling. Fatima giggled. Not yet, Chinedu. If she dies now, we're done. I've got another idea. Tun spoke low. We're slipping. If the ruling's hers, we lose everything. Adebayo glared at him. Keep worrying. I'll make her disappear, whatever it takes. At Suralere, Amina sat in the yard, holding Chukwemeka's beads. The truth shone in court today, but the fight wasn't done. Baba, she whispered, I'll go all the way. A week after the second court day, Lagos buzzed with tension waiting for the final ruling. Amina's story, the street girl against the Okoye family, had spread across Nigeria, from Oshodi markets to Enugu villages. The high court in Marina was packed that day, more than ever, with crowds outside holding phones and signs. Justice for Amina. Reporters from Channels TV, BBC Africa, and Punch jostled, ready to capture history. Amina walked in, heart pounding but fearless. She wore her green Ankara dress, now her symbol, and snug canvas shoes. Obinna and Emeka stood with her, both confident. Across from them, Adebayo, Ngozi, Chinedu, Fatima, and Tun sat tense. Adebayo clenching his jaw, Ngozi hiding nerves, Chinedu and Fatima whispering, Tun unreadable. Femi Adeyemi was with them, but his usual smirk was gone. Judge Aisha Muhammad entered, robe flowing, and banged her gavel. Today, I'll rule on Mr. Chukwemeka Okoye's will. After checking all evidence, video, witnesses, medical papers, recordings, I've decided. The room went still, only the fans creaking. Amina held Chukwemeka's beads, eyes on the judge. Adebayo leaned forward, gripping his chair. Evidence shows Mr. Okoye was fully sane when he signed, she said, voice clear. The video and witnesses, especially Mrs. Tolu Adewale, prove he chose Amina freely. The defendant's contract is fake, confirmed by handwriting experts. Plus, the plaintiff's recording and video show the defendants tried to forge papers and threaten witnesses, breaking Nigerian law badly. Murmurs rose, but she banged for quiet. So, I rule Mr. Okoye's will legal. Amina is the heir to all his wealth, including Okoye Holdings. The defendants pay all court costs. I'm sending their fraud case to Lagos police for investigation. The room exploded. The crowd cheered, some clapped, while Adebayo slammed the table, shouting, What's this nonsense? I won't take it. Ngozi covered her face, Chinedu dragged Fatima out, and Tund left quietly. Femi tried to stay calm, but his eyes showed defeat. Amina stood still, tears streaming, not from sadness, but relief. Obinna hugged her, voice choked. You did it, Amina. Baba Chukwu so proud. Emeka laughed, slapping her shoulder. Girl, you're Lagos legend now. Outside, the crowd mobbed her. Reporters shoved mics, asking, How do you feel winning? What's next for Okoye Holdings? She smiled, soft. I want to do what Baba Chukwu dreamed, help people like me. But the court win wasn't the end. 2 days later, at Obinna's house, a truck rammed the gate at midnight. The guard caught it in time, and it sped off before police came. Emeka traced it to Chinedu, who hired an Ajij thug for revenge. This time, nearby cameras gave proof, and Chinedu was arrested by morning. Adebayo and Ngozi didn't escape either. The recording and Jide's words led police to probe their fraud. Adebayo was caught fleeing to Abuja. Ngozi lost her personal wealth to court fees. Fatima and Tun backed off, their reputations trashed in Lagos high society. Amina, with Obina's help, took over Okoye Holdings. She moved back to the Okoye mansion, but not alone. She brought Chidi, the boy who shared Moi with her, and other Falomo kids to live there. "This isn't just my house," she told them. "It's ours." 10 years later, Lagos had changed, and so had Amina. At 24, she wasn't the skinny girl in rags anymore. In an elegant buba dress, she stood at the gate of a new school in Makoko, her old slum home. The sign read, Chukwuemeka Okoye School, where hope starts. It was the first of 5 schools she built across Nigeria for homeless and poor kids, free with daily meals. Obina, now retired but her advisor, stood beside her, smiling. "You've done it, Amina. This is Baba Chukwu's dream." Emeka, now running her charity, clapped as kids ran into the yard, laughing loud. "Girl, you turned Okoye Holdings into more than oil, a real legacy." Amina watched the kids, remembering her Falomo days of hunger and darkness. Now, she'd turned that pain into light for others. She touched Chukwuemeka's worn beads, her treasure, and whispered, "Baba, I did it. Thank you." At Kirikiri prison in Lagos, Adebayo sat in his cell, eyes empty. Ngozi, in the women's wing, wrote begging letters to Amina, unanswered. Chinedu got 10 years for attempted murder, while Fatima and Tund lived quietly in a small town, forgotten by Lagos. One afternoon, Amina stood on the Okoye mansion roof, watching the city's glowing lights. She recalled Chukwuemeka's words, "You have a heart they'll never have." That heart had turned his billions into hope for thousands like her old self. She turned as Chidi, now a tall teen, ran up, beaming. "Sister Amina, I passed my uni exams. I want to study and help you build more schools." She hugged him, tears falling. "Chidi, I'm so proud. We'll do what Baba wanted together, okay?" Under the sunset, Lagos roared on, chaotic as ever, but Amina's heart was at peace. She'd survived the storm, not just to live, but to bring light where there'd been only dark. Chukwuemeka's wish came true, and Amina's story became legend, a street girl who changed Nigeria with kindness and strength.